Welcome back. Now let's delve into the heart of the conversation. Joining me in the studio is the visionary leader of that's behind the presidential CNG initiative. That's the engineer Michael Luabini. He's also the program director and chief executive officer. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Okay, now let's go straight to what the presidential CNG initiative is about. Can you share to our viewers the overview, ranching, vision of this initiative?
Absolutely. Good afternoon to viewers, and it's a pleasure to be here once again. The CNG initiative, which is a presidential CNG initiative, is a product of the vision of the president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. With respect to trying to alleviate the suffering of the Nigerian masses, so consequent upon the removal of the fuel subsidy. We are aware that Nigeria has been importing PMS and diesel primarily, which it uses for running transportation. And at the base of it, the fuel subsidy regime was determined by the president to be unproductive or unuseful for Nigerian, given that it was almost driving us to bankruptcy. And so on May 29th, the president stated very clearly that the era of fuel subsidy was over. But in so doing, the president was still aware that the common man was now exposed to the vagaries of more expensive energy that is going to fuel the transportation. Transportation being responsible for between 16 to 17% of the average spending of a home. And this meant that those people were already impoverished or close to poor or living lower middle class were disproportionately exposed to this new policy that at the surface of it kept the price of PMS and diesel low at the pump, but at the same time was bleeding the nation's finances. So the president and his advisors, in their wisdom, pulled together what they call the palliative program. And in a speech on July 31st, 2023, the president indicated that his vision for the transport sector to alleviate the suffering of the masses as part of his palliative measure was to enable Nigeria to move towards the compressed natural gas, which is much cheaper, safer, and is more reliable. And as a result, he pulled together the presidential CNG initiative announced on August 19, 2023 on his Twitter handle. On October 1st, the president, after he had helped pull together a strong team of planners that included myself, he announced what that initiative looks like, or what the initiative will be focused on. His first indication was that the initiative will try as much as possible to very quickly transition Nigerian vehicles, as many as possible, to compressed natural gas, which was about 40 to 50% cheaper than PMS and diesel. He also indicated that in so doing, he will also enable the quick deployment of CNG platforms, about 11,500 of them, including buses and tricycles, that will be passed through mass transit operators that will be operating in our cities, that they can then pass on the consequence of this low cost of fuel to the masses. He also indicated that we're going to work very closely with labor. We're going to work very closely with technician associations to ensure that the capacity to transform or to transition existing vehicles that are running on PMS and diesel through an auto gas conversion program, which has a vision of having 1 million vehicles converted in Nigeria between now and 2027, was going to be implemented. And he announced that for the vehicles that were being acquired and the conversion kits that were being acquired, he had approved an emergency procurement. On October 6th, the president then announced the formation of the August body of what's called the steering committee, led by Mr. Zach Adediji and joined by 6 other wise men and women that constitute the steering committee for the presidential CNG initiative. And also that body, the steering committee, of course, also served as the board of the special purpose vehicle, which is the PICNG Limited, which I'm opportuned to lead as the chief executive, was constituted. Since then, we've been working very closely with labor as well as members of the public stakeholders, planning, implementing the vision of the president. It takes time. Like any good thing, you need to have a proper plan. If you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. There were two previous attempts at auto gas conversion program in the country, 2009 and 2017, and even more recently, during the COVID-19, it was muted that NNPC was going to try to implement a program of sorts. But we understood what the reasons why this program never took off. And so what we have been doing is to ensure a proper plan is put in place while also implementing the vision of the president, engaging stakeholders. Last year, we've been able to launch 7 conversion centers across Nigeria, doubling the number of conversion centers in Nigeria within 3 months, but even more so helping to stimulate the establishment of conversion centers by the private sector that have since then been able to open quite a number of them across the country. In so doing also, we've been able to implement the preliminary stages of a capacity building program. And we just got our work plan approved for the year, and we are hoping that this will be launched very soon when the conversion incentive program will be launched to a member of the public. So a lot of work has been going on for the past 3 months since October, and a lot of public engagement, because we also think that the critical part of this is encouraging members of the public to convert and to understand the technology that's underpinning compressed natural gas use for transportation sector.
Okay, now how has this been able to fit into the global energy landscape? Because we know some African countries like Egypt is running on this, and they have a vision to bring in more vehicles, I think by 2030 or thereabout. Now, how is this fitting into the global landscape to reduce this fuel emission?
Absolutely. Natural gas has net 5% less emission than PMS and diesel. Used for transportation, it emits 20 to 30% less carbon emission at the tailpipe of a vehicle than PMS and diesel. So for us as a country, we want to turn our current, what we're wasting, to wealth. Nigeria is the second largest flare of gas in the world after Russia, despite having the largest reserve of natural gas in Africa that can last us for 98 years. So what we're doing is we're taking the God-given resource that we have, instead of using it and utilizing it to benefit our economy, to enable our economy to run on low costs, in order to be able to compete effectively with other economies in the world. We are flaring it, leading, of course, to direct emission of methane and all the other greenhouse gases, polluting the environment. If you go to the Niger Delta, if you even go into space, you will see that most parts of the Niger Delta is glowing, but it's not glowing of electricity, it's glowing of flare. And so what the president is saying is, instead of wasting these natural resources, we're going to use that natural resources now to power the economy in order to displace a dirtier fuel, which is PMS and diesel, and to enable the economy to run on a cheaper fuel. If we're able to displace PMS and diesel and we run on a cheaper fuel, the Nigerian-made products will be cheaper. Nigerian-made products will also be able to compete effectively with other countries in the world. But more so, Nigerian-made products will have been produced using a less carbon-emitting fuel, which will also qualify us for carbon credit, among other incomes and revenue sources. So I think it's a win-win for Nigeria in terms of from a program planning perspective. It's never too late. We should have been doing this 30, 40 years ago. But the president, as a son of the industry, someone who has a background in the oil and gas industry, having started his career in ExxonMobil, just like myself, understands the essence of using gas to power this economy. And perhaps we should take our crude oil, process it and export it to the rest of the world, and then use our gas instead. Countries like Japan have been importing gas, and India have been importing gas from Nigeria to use for manufacturing, to use for powering their stations, to use for driving their vehicles, and then come back to compete effectively with Nigeria after importing the gas from Nigeria. So I think it's high time Nigeria leads this energy transition, and not just in Nigeria, not just in the region, but also in Africa and across the world. There are implications of this also for other sectors. Our automobile sector can be jump-started by production of hybrid gas and petrol vehicles. Nigeria can begin to build core competencies in our automobile manufacturing and begin to export to the rest of the world. This is about job creation. If we are going to have 1 million vehicles on the road running on gas that will be doing energy conversion from PMS to natural gas in the next 3 to 4 years, we're going to train a lot of technicians. Those technicians are useful for the auto industry and also begins to form the knowledge base for us to actually have a transformative sector that will employ millions of Nigerians when it comes to manufacturing. So I think the ability to see this through for us, the full gamut of the energy transition program, is our ability to also create millions of jobs for Nigerians, good jobs for that matter.
Now, if we look at the cost, the implication, I think we should talk about that. And also, what measures are you putting to train these people? Because, of course, we have what we call now engineers are going to be doing this gas compression. You have all of this put together from your end. Now, how are you going to train them? Do you intend taking people abroad, bringing other trainers into Nigeria to train them here and continue?
So, two parts to the question. The cost. I think the first thing is for us to understand that the cost of doing nothing has been very expensive. The average vehicle in Nigeria was subsidized with 7 million naira each every year for the last 20 years. So we're spending 7 million naira that could otherwise have been spent on doing other things on every vehicle that was plying Nigerian road in the last 20 years. It was a waste. 5 trillion naira was spent in 2022. This actually blew a hole in our budget. We ended up spending, having a deficit of about 7-8 trillion naira, meaning that the petrol subsidy regime alone was responsible for about 70% of our deficit. So it didn't make sense. So from the perspective of doing nothing, definitely doing this is much, much better. Imagine if the federal government gave 500,000 naira or 1 million naira to each vehicle and just said, for free, everybody can convert a vehicle. 20 years ago, we'll have saved ourselves 7 million multiplied by 20 years of even after we offer free conversions. So that is that. So the opportunity cost of not doing anything is quite expensive. Now, if we're going to do this, the president recognizes that, yes, we've been doing the wrong thing for many, many years, but now we need to do the right thing. But it's also trying to make it cost effective. This program initiative has the president's mandate to develop an incentive program to allow Nigerians to actually convert their vehicles. Because converting the vehicles from PMS to or diesel to CNG has two advantages. Number one, you are not locked to an only CNG option in the absence of overall CNG infrastructure across everywhere in Nigeria, because CNG is not available everywhere in Nigeria today. So what if you are driving your vehicle in an area without CNG, right? But if you convert your hybrid, your bifuel, you can use CNG, and when it finishes, it switches automatically to petrol or diesel. So the president is saying we should support that conversion, and we'll be rolling out a CNG incentive program in the next few weeks that will enable Nigerians to out of pocket not cost them anything. While there will be a component of it that will be discount, there will be a component of it that Nigerians will pay back slowly at the pump. But even after paying back slowly, it's still going to be cheaper than PMS and diesel. Today, if you go into any NIPCO station, you can get your CNG per kg equivalent about 230 naira to 300 naira, compared to the 650 naira you're going to spend on PMS. If you understand that, that means you're saving 40%. It means that even if you convert, most people that are using petrol spend between 50,000 naira to 100,000 naira a week. That means they will be saving between 25,000 naira and 50,000 naira a week. So it will take you 10 weeks to recover the cost of converting that vehicle. So, and after you've converted the vehicle after 10 weeks, the converter kit is yours. You continue to keep your savings. So even assuming you are going to be paying for it out of your pocket 100%, it will just take you 10 weeks to break even. And after that, all the savings is yours. And it lasts you for as long as 7-10 years. We had people that participated in the pilot that took place in Benin in 2009. They are still using their converter kits till today. Some of them even took it from the existing vehicle and transferred it to their new vehicle, and it's still working. So the benefits, the immense benefits to the country, to the environment, to your pockets, to your wallet, means that this is something that we need to do, absolutely. And in my opinion, there's no cost that we can even potentially say is too big for us to, number one, utilize the God-given resource that God has given us instead of wasting it and polluting the environment, to ensure that we can deliver better life, cheaper fuel to our people, to drive transportation of this country, to ensure that we create jobs, and ultimately to also ensure that the overall safety and life of Nigerian people are also preserved. And the second question you asked was about capacity building.
Yeah.
Yes, Rome was not built in a day. We have maybe about 100 to 150 technicians in the country today that have this capacity in one form or the other. They could be better. Many of them are probably trained at the most basic level. But we are collaborating
in Nigeria.
We are collaborating with the Nigerian Institute of Transport Technology, which is of course a parastatal of the Ministry of Transport. They have 7 campuses across Nigeria. They are one of our partners that are working on capacity building. Beyond that, the NITT, of course, that has the overall goal of accrediting and training technicians and working with the Nigerian Auto Development and Design Council, the NADDC. We also have various training partners that are on the private sector side that are working with them. So at the end of the day, we believe that over time, as as we move into this program with an aggressive focus on developing the capacity of Nigerians. We need about 1,500 technicians just this year alone. If we want to meet the goal of 1 million conversions by 2027, we will need 25,000 technicians. And we're working already. Yesterday I paid a visit to the Minister of Labour, and we discussed extensively how to bring in the MOMTA and NATA associations of technicians to ensure that we can use them as a platform to upgrade the levels of existing auto mechanics that can then adopt these techniques, and then they can be able to do auto gas conversion in Nigeria. So we're thinking about it, we are working it, it's in our work plan, and I think with effective focus, we can do it in country. There are various partners across the world, of course, that have taken an interest in this, that want to work with us, from Egypt to India, even to the US and Iran. All these countries have very viral auto gas industry. But at the end of the day, we think in Nigeria we have enough resources to compete effectively with the rest of the world.
Okay, so you don't need a partnership with these countries, because that was where I was coming to, the countries you're partnering with, you know, to make this a standard. Because when Egypt started, I remember they had several challenges, which I was also going to point out, because in Nigeria we don't have winter. And well, to some extent, we know that gas can explode. I'm not in the field, so I don't know how it works, but to an extent, I understand gas is a little bit lighter than fuel itself. So with the kind of weather we have in Nigeria, especially in the northern Nigeria, you know, unlike what we have in the US and other places, how would this be done so we don't get cars exploding on the road?
Nigeria is not half as hot as Egypt. Neither is it half as hot as the United States. You'll be surprised. I lived in Texas for over 13 years, and your summertime in Texas is over 120 degrees. I've not seen 101 degrees in Nigeria before. so Nigeria is not even half as hot as these countries. US was the second largest desert in the world, Agave Desert, after Sahara. So, but that said, gas does explode, but compressed natural gas won't explode. So there are different types of gases. Gas is just a state. There's nitrogen, there's hydrogen, there's different gases. But CNG is a specific type of gas. It's natural gas that composes primarily of ethane and methane. It's not the same thing as your liquefied petroleum gas, which is what you're used to at home, which is mostly butane and propane, and does have characteristics like PMS, which makes it susceptible to explosion. Natural gas occurs naturally. It occurs as a byproduct of just exploring gas, petroleum, and petroleum resources. And in existing naturally, it also has a very high flash point, which is over 400 degrees centigrade. And in the case of compressed natural gas, what you're doing essentially is taking that naturally occurring natural gas, taking out the mercury, for example, and some of the fluids, drying it, and then making it, increasing the content of ethane and butane and methane, and then putting it in what we call a non-extruded container. It is not the same thing as what your LPG cylinder. The LPG cylinder has weld. The weld of a CNG cylinder does not exist because it's extruded, so it does not have a point of leakage, and it does not have a point of escape. But that being even said, that cylinder itself is 10mm bulletproof thick, so it is not penetrable. And even when you penetrate it and it escapes, because it is natural and much lighter than air, it escapes so fast that it is impossible to be contained for explosion. This is as opposed to petrol. If you've seen a petrol vehicle before, once it has impact in an accident, because what happens is liquid, it flows down instead of escaping into the air so that you don't see it and it causes explosion. A petrol liquid flows down, settles, and then when there's an ignition, a cigarette or something that just kills, that's why you have explosion, and that's why you have many deaths as a result of petrol cars accidents. You don't hear of CNG car accidents in the world. You can Google it. It doesn't exist. It is impossible, because the moment you have an escape of natural gas, what will happen is that it will dissipate into the air, and you will never be able to capture it enough for explosion. So the fear around explosion is unfounded when it relates to CNG. What you need to be worried about with respect to CNG is, number one, is your vehicle that used to run on PMS properly converted if you're taking it to become an hybrid vehicle. So this is the reason why we are working with all the standards organization of Nigeria, SON, NADDC, NMPDRA, among many others. We convened the inter-body regulatory agency in a committee in December, and they've kicked off the writing of the Nigerian gas vehicle conversion safety standard. That is what you should worry about, not so much about the safety of CNG. The safety of CNG is incontrovertible. It's cheaper, it's safer, and a more reliable form of fuel in our transport sector than petrol.
Okay, I'll still come back to the cost. Let's look at the fact, the main thing, the main objective of this CNG, it was to subsidize the fuel subsidy pressure on the common man. Now we have taxi drivers on the road, we have other people who can't afford this. Is there any way, is there anything that can be subsidized? Because we can't have these people paying 300 to 600 converting their vehicles to this natural gas. How is it going to be done, and what is the measures you're putting to bring awareness? Because we went on the street and a lot of people didn't know what this is really about. Unlike what we heard, they had a total different understanding of what this CNG is about.
Absolutely. So in terms of the incentive program, which is what you're talking about, the conversion incentive program, which we plan to roll out in a few weeks. As I indicated, there will be significant discounts for the Nigerian people, especially mass transit users that will be trying to convert their vehicle, either bus operators or rideshare operators or taxi drivers. The federal government is going to ensure that the equipment itself, the kits itself, is significantly discounted for them as a form of palliative. The component of it that is not discounted, we are also working with financial institutions to design a way that it can be financed at almost zero to no cost. Or what it allows you is that over a period of time, you will be using, assuming, for example, the cost of CNG is 250 naira at the pump, you might be paying 300 naira, so a little bit of money on the gas, so that over time you pay down slowly, so that the day you walk into that conversion center to get your car converted, you're not really paying anything out of the pocket. It's free for you, at least in terms of your pocket at that point. What you then do is you pay the small balance after discount slowly at the pump. We're also looking to roll out installation vouchers to also enable them to cover the workmanship that will be charged to them, because the conversion centers are not government-owned institutions, they are privately owned institutions. So these are one of many incentives that we're going to put in place for the masses, because again, there's a significant gain for Nigeria. You have to understand this, that the federal government of Nigeria is the owner of gas. So if you look at your Petroleum Industry Act, you see it is very stated that, and all the gas in Nigeria is vested in NNPCL, right? So it is to the federal government advantage if you use gas. You are literally putting, if we're giving you incentive to convert to gas, we are putting money back into the pocket of the federal government. So we don't even mind from a conceptual accounting point of view. For every 500,000 that we give to you to incentivize members of the public to convert to gas, the federal government is going to make like 10 million naira on the gas that you use for that car for the next 10 years, right? So it makes sense for us to do this, and that's what we're going to pursue. I believe you have the second question. You had a second question.
The awareness.
The awareness program. Of course, a key part of this awareness is the engagement with the communities, especially the road transport unions. We've been working with RTEN. When we opened the first convention center, demonstrations pilot center in Lagos, we had a strong representation from the Nigerian Union of Road Transport Workers and URTW. Here in Abuja, we have strong representation from RTA and NARTO. When we went to Kaduna, we did the same. So we want to make sure that we sensitize and we work with the road transport workers. Because at the end of the day, for the middle class that own a nice fancy vehicle, they might be able to afford conversion, and they might be well ready enough to go online and to do research on CNG. But for the masses who will benefit from mass transportation, it is the understanding of the road transport worker, the road transport employees association, and the road transport union that will impact whether they get a lower cost of transportation in their buses, their taxis, and their ride shares. So we are working with them closely. Even our meeting yesterday with the Minister of Labour was along this line. We're going to be having engagement sessions. We've been having engagement sessions with them, and we're going to continue to do so. Right. We are talking to them about even having conversion centers at their garages, such that they can be able to have their vehicles converted seamlessly, working with our private sector partners. Beyond that, sensitization in the media is going on. We had at least 4 media stakeholder engagement sessions last year. We're going to continue this year. We also have to sensitize investors, because the key part of this is that federal government alone cannot be responsible for energy transition program. For us to do this, we need about 2.5 to 3 trillion naira. In the last year and maybe this year, the combined investment of the federal government will total about 230 billion naira. So it's still a very tiny silver of what is required. Most of the investment will have to be done by the private sector. So how do we engage them? In December 19 last year, we had an investor stakeholder summit in order to begin to educate the investors that the federal government is stimulating the market. Because what we are doing we're doing a demand pool. By us investing in conversion centers, investing in the conversion program, by discounting the kits, we are creating a market for investors in gas. So those people who are invested in gas can then see that, oh, we're signaling to them. We're going to have 1 million vehicles running on gas in 4 years. That demand is going to be anywhere between 100 to 200 mm's of gas a day. To the guy that is looking to invest, should be investing in gas, should be investing in the distribution of gas, in cascades, in refueling stations, in daughter stations and mother stations. That is what we are hoping that also happens. So engagement with investors, aside from our engagement with members of the public, with the unions and all of the mechanic association, technician association that will be involved in the conversion process, we are also very much engaged with the investor community, because we want them to know that the federal government is serious about energy transition in the transport sector.
So what?
And that's where we are. Yeah.
So what countries are you looking at? Because you talked about partnership.
Yes.
What countries are you looking at, and what kind of partnership are you looking at having with them? And are you also wooing international investors?
Absolutely. Our investor summit had significant participation by various international investors. Some of them from the UK, from the US, Uzbekistan, even Kazakhstan, India, China, UAE. They were all in the room. Even Egypt, we had at least, I think we had at least 2 speakers from Egypt. So we are open for investment. Nigeria is open for investment. The president is very investment friendly, and it's someone that I've declared that Nigeria should be open for investment in every sector of the economy, including oil and gas. This is the gas utilization issue, and it impacts not just the energy sector, but it also impacts the transportation sector, and also impacts the automobile manufacturing sector. So we are open for investors across this value chain. And we are not, Nigeria is a non-aligned country, so all kind of countries are welcome. We don't discriminate, whether it's the US or it's Iran. We're welcome here in Nigeria. Bring your dollars, we're here to spend.
Well, we really must thank you for your time and your thoughts. Thank you for coming on Global View. I hope we'll have more to talk about in the coming months. We do thank you so much.